Hey, VC, how's it going? Hope everybody is doing well tonight. I am joined once again by my good friends Chris Profi, whose channel is Chris Profi Musically Obsessed, and Gary from Physical Format Rock and Roll. And tonight we're talking about chicks. We are talking about what are we talking about? We're talking about 5 of our favorite bands who have a female lead vocalist. They could be all female members of the band, but they at the very least, have a female lead vocalist. And I wouldn't say these are necessarily my 5 favorite, but they're 5 that I really like a lot. And they're 5 that I'm hoping you guys didn't choose. So that's kind of how I came upon my list. What about you guys?
What am I supposed to say here? I think,
how'd you come up?
I just chose. Oh, how did I come up with my? It's
Jesus.
just it's the beginning of the video, and I'm already tongue-tied. Well, I knew, there were a couple that I knew I had to throw in, and then I don't know. I just kind of picked a couple other random ones that I didn't think you guys would pick.
Mm-hmm. On mine, I tried to pick bands that, had the female out front, and that the one or, however many women, they were the ones in charge. I tried to do it that way to kind of, you got to always find ways to limit certain acts. And so that's kind of how I went with it. I feel like maybe, 1 or 2 of the bands on my list, I'll be surprised if they're not on one of your guys' list, but some of them won't be.
Well, what does it count if the female sings the bulk of the songs, but maybe there's a male singer as well who sings?
That's one of the bands that I picked is that way. So
Okay. Right.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to get into it because it'll give it away, but yeah, at least one of the bands does have a male vocalist as well.
Okay.
Anyway, I really like all these bands. So, I mean, technically they're probably my top 5 because I do enjoy their music quite a bit, but we'll get into our list and we'll see what we have to offer here. But Chris, you want to start us off with your first pick?
Yeah, my first pick is Rush. No, I'm just kidding. Getty. I don't know,
Take off.
Yeah. No, I went really obscure for my first pick, and but this came to mind because they are an SST band, and I know that people are probably sick of me talking about SST, but the band is called Blood on the Saddle, and I've got 2 of their records, Fresh Blood, and they're self-titled, Blood on the Saddle. Now, what's cool about this band is that they're a cowpunk band, so they sort of mix punk and sort of rockabilly in their sound. They're from LA, and the lead singer, her name, and I hope I pronounced this correctly, it's Annette Zelinskas. And what's cool about her is she was an original member of the Bengals on their first record.
Oh, I thought you meant the Cincinnati Bengals.
No. The actual girl group, the Bengals.
Oh, okay. The Walk Like an Egyptian Bengals. Gotcha.
Yeah. So her name's Annette Zelinskas, and she was on the first Bengals record. I'll show you that in a little bit. But then she got into the band Blood on the Saddle. So this is a really obscure band. I don't think I would even know about them if it wasn't for the SST label. And anybody out there who doesn't know, that's the label that Black Flag is on, and Husker Du and Sonic Youth and all those bands. So I don't think I would have known about these guys if it wasn't for the label connection. But they're a cool band. I mean, like I said, it's cowpunk, so it's a mixture of punk and rockabilly.
The drawing on that cover looks like the artist who does some of the Black Flag covers. I don't know if that's true or not, but
yeah, I don't think it is, but you're right. It's sort of the same color scheme as well.
What's the year on that?
It's 80s, 1987.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you can still get their records for cheap. You know, I think I got this on Discogs. I don't know. Like you guys are the same way. I like to sort of seek out different bands and try different things. And yeah, I can't even remember the last time I listened to this record, but I remember liking it. I might have to spin it in the next couple days or so. But yeah, I don't know if they have more than 2 records, but these are the 2 that I have. So
Cool. I can't remember you ever showing those on your channel. So
No.
yeah, I think I might have shown them at one point, but it was a long, long time ago.
mhm.
Yeah. But yeah, cool band. Sort of obscure, but there's a Bengals connection.
Very cool. Did she
Yeah.
sing on that Bengals record?
She did. While you guys are sharing yours, I'll see if I can dig out the Bengals record and I'll show you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it this one you're looking for?
No, it's the one before
Okay.
that.
Oh, I thought that was their first record. I didn't
It
know
is
that.
their first record, but they had an EP before
This is
that.
the EP.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Now what-
yeah, Annette Zelinskis is on here. Oh, look
I
at how
actually,
young- look at how young.
I
the
actually
band is.
think she is currently back in the band.
Oh, she is. Okay.
This
All
is my number 5 pick is the Bengals.
Oh, okay.
So
Well, that was a
there's-
great segue for you, Gary.
yeah, there's your connection.
I was wondering how you had that album so quickly
So
available.
close. Yeah. You've got the Peterson sisters and Susanna Hoffs, who are the main members of the band and the main songwriters of it. They got together in 1981, formed a band because they had similar influences. And this came out in 84. Very much a 60s sounding band, really. The Bengals, I mentioned last week about Susanna Hoffs being a big Michael Nesmith fan. And, honestly, if you guys would put on this record and listen to it, you would say, oh yeah, this sounds like it came out like sometime in the late 60s. Of course, with different light, this is when they became world known. They had Manic Monday, which was actually written by Prince, and Walk Like an Egyptian is on this. Of course, we all remember Susanna Hoff's eyes
Oh gosh, yeah, I still do.
during that. Also, I think Eternal Flame is on here.
No, that's on another album.
Or is that the next one?
It's the next one.
Okay. Did you know that when she recorded that, she did it naked?
Really?
Just a little
Well-
piece of information there. But
Oh,
they broke up in the late 80s because of, egos and everything. Probably the same reason we'll all break up. We'll all start fighting and becoming jealous of each other. They got back together, had this album, Doll Revolution, which the Doll Revolution song, Take Off Your Own Head. It's a Doll Revolution is an Elvis Costello song.
Yes, it is. I thought I recognized that.
They redid that. This is actually a very good album. Very good comeback. Now it's been a while. It's been like, look at that. You're a regular Aaron. It's been
Yeah.
about 10 years since their last album, Sweetheart of the Sun. This has a very folky sound to it. That was always part of their sound. But I love the harmonizing that the Bengals do, the jangly guitars. They had that, of course, they had a big hit with that remake of, Hazy Shade of Winter, and from the Less Than Zero soundtrack, and that was awesome. They're one of the bands that somehow I have never seen, one of these bands, and I'm hoping I still get a chance to do that at some point before I or they are dead. But that's my first pick is the Bengals.
and Susanna Hoff still looks good.
Yeah, she's like, early 60s and does not look it. Still very attractive. woman.
Yeah, she's beautiful.
Awesome. Well, the first band that I'm going to show, they hail from Basildon, Essex in the UK. And their name is actually, they dropped 2 vowels when they released their albums in the UK. And I'm talking about Yazoo, or Yaz as they were known in the US. And it was Vincent Clarke, who previous to forming Yaz with Alison Moyet was a founding member of Depeche Mode. He was on their album Speak and Spell. And then after that album was recorded, he left the band, and he actually answered an ad that Alison Moyet had put in the paper looking for a keyboard player because she was a vocalist. And they were both influenced very heavily by orchestral maneuvers in the dark. And they formed a duo. They had 2 albums. They had this one, Upstairs at Eric's, which is their most popular album. There were 3 singles off of this, which actually hit the top 3 in the UK charts. That's how popular they were. And then their last album was called You and Me Both. And Vincent Clarke parted ways with Alison Moyet and then formed the band Erasure. But what's interesting is that Alison Moyet, her vocal style is very similar to Andy Bell, who was in Erasure with Vincent Clarke. But yeah, just very much a poppy, like synth pop. I mean, I like it. This album is very, there's an experimental track on here, I Before E, Except After C, which is kind of almost something you might hear on a Kraftwerk album, or Radiohead, I think kind of borrowed that whole idea for Happier Fitter on their album OK Computer. But, you know, Don't Go was a huge hit single. That's kind of like a dance pop song. You've got Only You, which was a ballad. Situation, which was actually a B-side, became a hit also in the US. Even in the early 90s, I think they did a remixed version of that, which charted. But just really an influential album. But quite a few hits off of here. And one of the coolest albums, if you went to college in the 80s when I did, everybody who was cool had a copy of this album. And their second album, even though it doesn't get a whole lot of, a whole lot of people talking about this album, I think if you like their first album, you'll like this one. It doesn't deviate very far from their formula. And if you like Erasure, you'll definitely like both those albums. But yeah, it's definitely very much that early 80s synth pop sound. And I think Alison Moyet's got a great voice. She had a solo career after they split up. And I don't know if she's still recording today, but great voice, kind of like a husky type of she could almost be a blues singer. But yeah, anyway, that's my pick.
Interesting pick.
Yeah. So
that reminds me, or makes me think, when you mentioned about having a like dance kind of music on some of it. Do you guys ever play albums and maybe dance to a song when you're just by yourself?
I never do that.
I would never admit to it on camera.
Yeah, I don't either, but I just thought maybe you guys did.
I would say, maybe after a few beers, if I'm by myself downstairs and the shades are drawn, I'm not going to say I've never done that, but
maybe I have, maybe I haven't.
I digress.
Okay. So, Jeff, you went to college in the 80s?
I did. 1988.
Oh, okay. Nice. All right.
You got some kind of smart ass remark about that? Because what's the deal with that? So you went to college in the 80s? You're kind of old, Jeff.
Oh, interesting. It's funny that you are showing a synth pop record too.
I know. I mean, I know I'm like a metal guy, and a thrash guy. But I mean, we're talking about female vocalists, so I didn't have a whole lot in my collection. You know, I mean, I don't know. I know it's kind of out of character for me, but this is what you get.
All right, I'll stop picking on you. All right. Well, I'm going to show a band called Girl School, and they were formed in 1978. They were actually part of the new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah.
They were on the same label as Motorhead, the Bronze label, I want to say. And Motorhead kind of took them under their wing, and they came out with they sort of put their two names together, and they came out with a band called Head Girl. And they actually released an EP. It was Motorhead and Girl School, and the EP was called St. Valentine's Day Massacre, where they did the song Please Don't Touch, which is a killer song. It's Lemmy and the members of Girl School singing together. And I think it was actually a little bit of a hit for them. But this is the only Girl School album I have. I believe it's called Demolition. I need to get some more Girl School. It's basically, like I said, it's new wave of British heavy metal with sort of a rock and roll flair, and they are all females, so very, very cool. And you know, they're endorsed by Lemmy from Motorhead, so how cool is that? Yeah. But yeah, so Girl School.
Paul McCartney actually had a song, I think it was a B-side called Girl School.
Well, Brittany Fox had a song called Girl School too. Yeah, but I would encourage people to listen to the song Please Don't Touch. I think it's a cover, actually. I can't remember who originally did it.
They reissued those Girl School albums.
Yeah, this is a reissue, I want to say.
Okay. And yeah, they also have like a greatest hits that they reissued that you might be interested in that.
Okay.
Get a little bit from all the albums.
Yeah, this came out in 1980. So I was 6 years old.
Me too.
It's all about age tonight.
I know. Well, you started that shit. But.
Yeah.
That's when I went to college, Chris.
That's when he bought his first Yaz record.
That's right.
I actually had that. I have that Yaz album on CD. It's really good.
Honestly, I bought it without having heard a single song off of it, just because I knew so many people had that as part of their collection. I'm like, well, got to be something good about this. And, you know, even though it was like, you know, 7 or 8 years after that album came out, I was like, yeah, I dig it, man. Because I was into Depeche Mode and I was into New Order and stuff like that. So it was definitely up my alley. But
what is your
favorite? I was into Judas Priest. I was into Iron Maiden. I was into, I mean, don't get me wrong, I was into Anthrax and Metallica and stuff like that. But
yeah,
I had that other side to me. Anyway, I'm not going to sit here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here and apologize for having a substantial amount of synth pop in my collection, nor am I going to apologize for showing synth pop albums. And I'm not going to even say that's the first and the last synth pop album I'm going to show in this video. So,
well, here's the thing. I don't give a shit, because my first record, I think, was Cyndi Lauper, She's So Unusual. And I think I also got Huey Lewis and the News, Sports.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah. And I love those records. They're great records.
Well, you know, they're good if you still listen to them today. I'm not going to say that I throw sports on the turntable, you know, with any kind of regularity, but I do, and I'm feeling a little nostalgia for my junior high days. I'll put it on and kick back to I Want a New Drug. And
well, doesn't Aaron have a Japanese pressing of Sports?
Yeah, he does.
I think he does, and I'm not kidding. I think he does, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
but we're not here to talk about Huey Lewis.
Jeez. Hey, that Yaz band that you're talking about. So do they have a female and a male singer?
No, just female.
Oh, now see, I might be interested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Normally the synth pop bands that have the guy singers, they just sound like kind of like whiny little bitches, and I can't listen to it that much. But like, I love Berlin with Terry Nunn singing. So, something like that, I would give a try to.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the song "Only You." It's a ballad. I'm sure you've
Is
heard
that off
it.
of
I mean,
the
it's been
Elder?
in movies, soundtracks, and
Oh, okay.
I'd be very
I probably
surprised.
have then.
Is
Yeah.
that off the Elder? He said.
So basically, half my music collection is filled with whiny little bitch vocalists, I guess.
Only in this video will you hear, "Is that off the Elder?" Like, seriously, I guarantee nobody else is saying that.
Yeah,
Holy
that's why
you.
people tune in, I guess.
Well, I tell you what, we need Sam St. John back here again because we're already out of control.
Yes, we need a voice of reason.
We do.
All right, on to my next pick. This is also from the 80s. Actually, their first album was 1984. All the way from Dusseldorf, Germany. It's Warlock.
Nice.
Of course, with the amazing Doro Pesh on vocals.
And
Yes.
did you see Jeff left?
Jeff
Well, I
left.
knew it was
I know,
going to
he
be
does-
Warlock. I'm like, I'm not going to have anything to contribute at all.
He doesn't
to
give
this
a shit
conversation.
about what I have to talk about. I sit
Well-
here and listen to all his synth pop stuff. The minute I get to show record, he fucking leaves.
But Gary, I would never once characterize any of the music Gary listens to in the derogatory way that he's characterized male synth-pop vocalists. So
Whiny.
And of course-
I'm just saying.
Hey,
I'm just saying.
I did give you, I said, I am seriously considering buying that latest Duran Duran record, mostly because of you and how much you like them.
But
So
did
there.
you?
Not yet,
Okay. All right.
but I will. I will. Anyway, I'm talking about Warlock. Came on the scene, 84. They only had 4 records. The first one was called Burning the Witches. This was their record from 87, and this is by far their best. Triumph and Agony. This is the one this one's the solid album all the way through. Like I said, they only lasted for a short period of time. Started switching members until eventually it was just Doro and some other dudes in the band. And eventually she just got rid of the name Warlock, but she has went on. She's still making records today. I've got other stuff of hers. Still, her solo career has went on for quite a while. I actually like her solo material more than I do Warlock, only because I think there's so much more of it, and she has matured somewhat over time. Like I said, she's still making records. Her last one was actually a double one. It was a double CD version. This is the album that I first saw her on. This is from like around 2000. It's autographed. You probably can't read it. But anyway, this is from when I met her during that time period right there. So this is about 20 years ago. She saw me out in the audience and asked if she could hang out with me for a while. So I did that.
Was your wife there?
No, she was not at that picture. It was all platonic. Chris, don't get all weird. We're just hanging out, man. She just saw me getting into the music, and she said, "Hey, these people, this guy here knows my music," because it was her, Yngwie Malmsteen, and Dio was the bill.
Nice.
And honestly, I didn't really care about Yngwie Malmsteen that much.
He gets annoying.
So he's arrogant. And so when he was on, that's when this picture was taken. I went up front. She actually came out there and just hung out. Super nice. Just talking. There was hardly anybody out in that area at the time. So took a couple pictures, talked to her. She said, because I had that Kiss shirt on at the time, and she goes, because she's got that heavy German accent. I'm not going to try to imitate it, but she said how she had just saw Gene Simmons like a couple weeks ago, for something, and he's actually done some work with her too. And she did a cover of, I think she did a cover of Only You, as we kind of mentioned that. But
you sure it wasn't Plastercaster?
I'm positive it was not Plastercaster.
Now, are you saying did she do a cover of the Only You, the Kiss song from The Elder, or Only You by Yaz?
Pretty sure it was the Kiss song from The Elder.
Okay.
It would have been. She did have an album where she has some kind of electronic background stuff, by the way. So.
Well, see, I know what it was. Is she like Kiss? They used to have their roadies send their roadies out into the audience and like, okay, the blonde over here, the brunette over there. You give them backstage passes, and I'm sure it was the same with Doro. She's like, that handsome fella in the front row over there. Give him a backstage pass, and
that's why the first thing I said, look, I'm married. Let's get that on the table. Nothing's going to happen. All I want's an autograph. That's it. So
yeah. Well, at least you were a gentleman.
I always try to be, Chris.
That's good.
Well, pretty much makes the rest
I'm
of
going to love
underwhelming.
Whatever you pick next, Jeff, I love, just so you know.
Yeah.
Gary, we should get up and leave right now.
Should.
So Gary's next 3 picks are going to be, he's going to have pictures of himself with the vocalist probably, but all right, well, anyway, I did not get my picture taken with the next female vocalist, nor did I sleep with the female vocalist for this band, but I did a video about a week ago, my top 10 favorite debut albums, and I can't believe I left this one off the list. This is the band that I'm going to talk about, but I'm talking about the Pretenders.
Nice.
This is one of the greatest debut albums of all time. You got Pete Farndon, who looks like he could be a member of the Clash, over here on bass. You got Chrissy Hind, of course, the vocalist, rhythm guitarist. You got Martin Chambers on drums, and then James Honeyman Scott over here on lead guitar. And actually it's interesting because on this debut album, Nick Lowe produced the track Stop Your Sobbing, which was a Kinks cover. And that's the only track that he produced because he's like, this band is not going anywhere. Like, I'll do this track, but I'm not going to do the whole album. And so they got Chris Thomas to produce the rest of the album. And Chris Thomas, if you know anything about the Beatles, he was a producer. He helped out George Martin during the White Album sessions. And he actually was the uncredited producer for the tracks Birthday and Happiness is a Warm Gun. So they were in very capable hands. But this has got, I think Brass and Pocket is probably the biggest single off of here, but you got Stop Your Sobbing on here as well. But just a real kind of slice of that late 70s. This came out in December of 1979, but it's got that feel, that late 70s feel, kind of that post-punk feel to it. But it's just great. It's melodic pop. It's got elements of punk to it, elements of new wave. But the Pretenders were just a fantastic band. I mean, very unfortunately, Pete Farndon had some drug problems, and so he got kicked out of the band. In fact, James Honeyman Scott said, I'm not going to stay in this band unless you kick out Pete Farndon, because Pete Farndon was very difficult to work with. And ironically, 2 days after they kicked Pete Farndon out of the band, James Honeyman Scott had a cocaine overdose and died. And then a year later, Pete Farndon, he actually drowned in his bathtub. He had OD'd on heroin, and he passed away. So both of those guys, unfortunately, did not live beyond the first 2 Pretenders albums. But Yeah, Chrissy Hynde. I mean, she's very much, you know, a scholar of like 60s rock, kind of like the 60s pop. But I love her vocals. I love the attitude that she has. I think the Pretenders as a unit were very cool. I mean, I don't know that there's any original members left in the Pretenders if they're still putting out music, but yeah, I think along with Debbie Harry, I think her and Debbie Harry were like the two most prominent or influential vocalists in that late 70s, early 80s post-punk movement. But yeah, Pretenders are just great. I wish I'd pulled out more Pretenders records to show, but just a great band.
Great choice.
Yeah, that's excellent. They might show up again.
Yeah,
All
as
right.
you guys are talking, I'm remembering all these female fronted bands. I'm like, crap, I should have shown them. I should have shown them. And I don't know.
I didn't think of Girls School when you said
Yeah.
that. Never even entered my mind. But
Well, this isn't before I show my female fronted band, I want to show a whiny little bitch band. Depeche Mode, A Broken Frame. This is a great album. Gary, you need this record, dude.
which one is it?
A Broken Frame.
How do you pull that stuff out so fast like that?
Just because I'm in the D sec. I'm really close by the D section of my CDs. So no, but that is a great album, and that actually, you know, that was the first album they released without Vince Clarke, and but it's fantastic because it's not cheesy, you know, what you might consider kind of like whiny little, you know,
Bitch.
mopey kind of. I love that. I love My Secret Garden. I love Leave in Silence off there. See You, Meaning of Love is great. But Chris, check out the videos. If you've never seen the videos for Meaning of Love or See You, they are embarrassing.
Really?
As much as I love that album, I saw the videos and I'm like, oh, geez, that's.
Well, listen, they can't be as embarrassing as like Kiss from like the early 80s. Those videos from like Look It Up, they're so bad.
Those are classic.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that cover too. I love that.
Yeah.
That painting. Those early Depeche Mode covers are.
I like that cover. I will say that.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well, my female fronted band is a very cool band. And I don't know why I don't listen to them more often. I got a lot of their records. I pulled out a few of the records to show you, but it's a band called Renaissance. And they are a mixture of a lot of different genres. They're progressive rock, folk, jazz, a whole bunch of different you know, genres of music sort of mixed together, but they definitely get grouped into that progressive rock thing from the 70s. Lead singer, her name is Annie Haslam. She has a beautiful voice. That's not her right there, but this is one of their albums called Ashes Are Burning. I've got Turn of the Cards. I have Scheherazade and Other Stories. I've got Prologue, but I've got a lot of their records. Really cool band. I sort of like, if you're into the second side of Zeppelin 3 and also the song from Zeppelin 4,
Battle of Evermore.
Yeah, if you're into that sort of sound, you'd really dig Renaissance. And they were a pretty big band, but a lot of people have never heard of them. Annie Haslam also had some solo records. I have her album, Alice in Wonderland, which is a cool album.
Are they kind of like a Fairport Convention?
Yeah, sort of. I would say more proggy, though. And yeah, so anybody who's into that sort of folky, prog rock, female-led singer band, 70s rock, you'd be into Renaissance.
Like,
you guys have never listened to Renaissance before?
I haven't, but they sound very interesting.
Yeah.
How you just described it.
Yeah, check them out. Really, just a really cool band. I think they made some albums in the 80s too. I would stick with the 70s stuff.
Huh.
But
I mean, I've seen that name, but I never realized I mean, the way you're describing it, it almost sounds like a female Jethro Tull or something.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Do you guys know the channel Bill the Vinyl Verse? Do you follow him? I think he got me into these guys because he showed this record, Scheherazade and Other Stories, and he was describing Renaissance, and I was like, okay, I need to listen to this band. And I, fell in love with what I heard. So yeah, they're on the Sire label, but yeah, just a cool band. And like I said, they got quite a few albums, and they're one of those bands that should have probably been bigger than they were. But I don't know, maybe they just got lost in the whole, everybody was progressive rock in the 70s, it seems like. So maybe they just got lost in the shuffle.
Did you say the Sire label?
The Sire label, yeah.
Did you know,
Like
you
the
know who else
Pretenders?
was on, you know who else was on the Sire label?
Depeche Mode. You mean
The Ramones.
the whiny little bitches?
Yeah.
I
No,
take it back. They're very masculine men.
Listen, in all seriousness, though, I think you guys would really like Renaissance.
I think I would too.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Jethro Tull and you like Yes, and I know both you guys do,
Yeah.
you would dig these guys. So
I'm going to look for one now.
yeah, Renaissance.
Just
Cool.
like the fairs, the Renaissance fairs.
Yeah, but not as cheesy.
Oh, okay.
But Annie Haslam, yeah, she's got a beautiful voice. Yeah, very cool. And like I said, she's got some solo stuff too.
Cool.
Well, that's very cool. Very cool pick. So my next pick, very mainstream, but I kind of felt like I had to go with that. And a Nancy Wilson of Heart.
I thought about that tonight. Yeah.
Yeah, I almost didn't use them, to be honest with you, because I thought this is such an easy pick. But I'm like, God, they've had so many good albums, so much good music. And Ann Wilson, just what a powerhouse vocalist. And she is still bringing it to this day.
Yeah.
I just saw her, I think, a couple years ago, saw Heart. And, Nancy Wilson, such a great rhythm guitar player. These guys have written some fantastic songs starting, this album came out in 1976. They've been going strong ever since. I know they've had some problems. They've had some feuding over the last couple of years, but I think they are probably working that out. But they had Dreamboat Annie, followed it with Little Queen.
Speaking of Renaissance.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Very much so. This, of course, has Barracuda on it. But a lot of times it's, Heart, like an album like this, it's not just those hits that are on there. I mean, these are pretty solid albums that you can listen to all the way through. Another one they had that I think is kind of undersold a little bit is Bebe Lestrange. I think this is a great rocking album here. People don't talk about this a lot, but this is another really solid one. This one rocks pretty good. I would really recommend that. And like I said, still around today, still sound great. They I think they influenced a lot of people. They were kind of like, Led Zeppelin's kid sisters or something. They were very much fans of Led Zeppelin, and it shows in some of their songs. Barracuda basically sounds like something off of Presence. So Heart and Nancy Wilson.
One of my favorite Heart songs is Dog and Butterfly.
Yeah, me too. I really like that song. It's funny because last summer, my wife and I saw a Heart tribute band. Mm-hmm. And I was like saying, oh, I hope they do that song. And they did. And, it's a little bit longer of a song, very mellow song. My wife is like, I know you really like that song, but it's kind of boring. And I'm like, well, I don't agree.
Right. Well, it's like we were talking before the video before how we love the Paul Stanley song, Hold Me, Touch Me. I do anyways. Off the solo record.
What always amazed me is that's what they released for the single.
Yeah.
For that album. You know, I don't know why. I was kind of surprised. I think they thought at that time period, you know, there were a lot of mellow 70s songs that became hits, you know, and I think they thought that was going to happen, but it just never quite caught on.
Yeah, I just want to let
I like his voice in that though.
Right. Oh, definitely. Just because I'm wearing a Black Sabbath t-shirt doesn't mean that I don't like the love songs.
Oh, I think we're all that way.
Yeah. I'm a sappy person. So
only Jeff is the cynical one. We're, you know, we both wear our hearts on the sleeve.
We do.
The John Lennon of our
You are. You insecure person, you.
Yeah. Well, cool. Yeah, no, I really thought about Heart, but I'm like, I know Gary's gonna show it. Like, I know, but like, really, if you think about it, like, as far as classic rock goes, on the radio, I mean, the only other female classic rock singers that you heard on the radio in the 70s would be Christine McVie and Stevie Nicks, you know, so it wasn't like you heard a lot. I mean, Heart was very unique in that way, and that you know, it's like, what is female vocalist belting, you know, like a female Robert Plant, you know, and yeah, but Heart is solid all the way through.
Think of those vocals on Crazy on You. And it's
killer.
Yeah. Well, and then they had the, you know, the resurgence in the 80s with their self-titled album, just when everybody thought they were, you know, one of those bands that was never gonna ever, you know, be on the radio again. And then they had all those hits off that album. And then into the 90s, even with Brigade. But yeah. All right. Well, so I'm getting to the band now where, yeah, they had a female vocalist, but also a male vocalist. But I'm going to talk a little bit about the B-52s.
You might.
Yep. Love the B-52s. Actually, this album came out the same year as the last album I showed, which was the Pretenders' debut. And Fred Schneider here was the other vocalist he had, but you know, he was more, I don't know, I almost feel like he was kind of like a comic relief. Like, he never took his vocals seriously because he was always almost speaking his vocals instead of singing, and wacky, you know, but yeah.
If you see a painted sign by the side of the road, it says 15 miles to the...
Whoa, shit, yeah. So, but I mean, talk about strong debuts. I submit B-52's debut album is solid. You got Planet Claire on here, Rock Lobster. Yeah, which, yeah, John Lennon in one of his final interviews talked about Rock Lobster and the fact that, you know, they borrowed a lot from Yoko Ono, you know, with the vocals on that song with that, whatever. I mean, I can't do Yoko Ono, but you know what I'm talking about, that, you know, towards the end of the song where she's doing all that, like Yoko screeching, caterwauling, whatever you want to call it. But that was a big hit. But this is a great debut album. Even if you've only known Rock Lobster, the other tracks on here are really solid. But yeah, part of that, you know, 1979, they hail from Athens, Georgia, which is the same city that, the same town that REM. If you're big REM fans, that's where REM hailed from. But yeah, they came out earlier than REM, but this was their debut album. Then Wild Planet, their second album, which is equally as strong. This has got Private Idaho on here, which is probably the most recognized track, but I love Strobe Light off here. Dirty Back Road is excellent. Another great follow-up. Kind of like the closest they came to synth pop was this album, Whammy. Legal Tender, you know, I've heard on alternative radio quite a bit, but a little more synth pop on this album than they had before. They actually, David Byrne produced this EP, which is Mesopotamia, which is great, underrated, very much underrated part of B-52's catalog. And then they had their resurgence, and I think it was 1988 with Cosmic Thing that had Love Shack on it, and Rome, Channel Z was another great track off here. But yeah, I love the B-52s. Unfortunately, Ricky Wilson passed away. I think he had AIDS or whatever right before the Cosmic Thing album came out, but he was very much an integral part of the early B-52 sound. But yeah, I love the B-52s. Yeah, they're quirky, almost like Devo a little bit, in that, you know, they kind of had that little gimmick kind of thing where you had Fred Schneider on vocals, it was kind of wacky, and then you had the you know, the female vocalists, but
who could both really sing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like that's a cool pick. I like the B-52s. Funny enough, I saw a concert where the last two bands you just mentioned, that's who it was. It was the Pretenders and the B-52s.
Oh, that would have been a great one.
It was a lot of fun.
And what's the member who sang on Shiny Happy People?
The blonde.
Kate Pearson.
No, Kate Pearson, yeah.
I couldn't remember her name.
Yeah, well, she sang on that, and then she also sang on Me and Honey, the last track on Out of Time.
She's just got that distinctive voice. You just know when you hear it.
Yeah.
Didn't she also sing on an Iggy Pop song?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I can't think of the name of it, but was it Candy? I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. Candy. Nice. Nice. My turn.
All right, we're down to our last two.
Well, I'm changing my number two pick. And I was sort of inspired by Gary. Gary showed Heart. And I said to myself, okay, two female singers. And I don't know why I didn't have these ladies on my list, but I'm going Indigo Girls. I got to show the Indigo Girls. I don't know why I didn't have them on my list, but after the video, I'll tell you what my number two was, or after we go through the number ones. But I've always loved the Indigo Girls, just a folk duo, but they played so many different styles of music. They do some country, they do some bluegrass, they do folk, they do some rock, they do 90s alternative. They sort of did a little bit of everything. I mean, they basically started out as a folk duo. Like, this is their first record, Strange Fire. I've also got the self-titled album with the hit Closer to Fine, which most people know that tune. I think they came up around the same area as REM as well. I think in that Athens, Georgia, that was like a hot spot for music back in the 80s. I have all their CDs, but the other couple albums I have, one of their later albums, One Lost Day. And then I've also got their latest record called Look Long, which is really good too. And yeah, beautiful harmonies, great songwriters, you know, great singers, you know, a good message in their music. And like I said, they sort of bring a lot of different styles into their music. So it's not just like strict folk, but yeah, Indigo Girls.
Nice pick.
Thank you. Yeah, I know you guys aren't really too big of a fan, but whatever.
Well, I think only because I haven't heard like a lot of their music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't like their stuff, but
I would say if you're going to listen to a record, I would listen to the self-titled. It's really good. Yeah.
Have you ever seen them live?
The song Closer to Fine was a huge hit. Yeah, I've seen them live probably about 3 or 4 times. Yeah.
I saw them live once.
Did you?
Yeah.
Lilith Fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like them. I mean, you know, it's not a band I would go to all the time, but like when you're in that kind of mood, they definitely fit the bill. You know?
Yeah.
They've got that folky, sometimes almost country sound too.
Yeah.
My next pick is another band that started in the 70s. And probably one of the first band, well, yeah, there was like a couple bands around that time period that were some of the first bands that weren't just hard rock that I got into, that were more of the new wave or whatever type, sound you want to say. They started out in the mid 70s playing CBGBs. That would be Blondie.
Nice.
Blondie came onto the scene. I think this is their second album, Plastic Letters. Their debut album, I believe it came out in 76. Then they were making consecutive albums right after that were all very good. I was thinking that I had some of their other albums out here, but I guess I did not bring those out. Parallel Lines, of course, was their big breakthrough album. One Way or Another, Don't Leave Me Hanging on the Telephone. Just, they were such a good band. In my mind, of course, Debbie Harry being the lead singer on there, but they were a band. I know she was the focal point. She was a lead vocalist. She co-wrote a lot of the songs, but they were just a very solid unit. They had such a unique sound, I thought, of combining like 60s sounding pop music with a little bit of punk elements in there, some new wave elements, and they basically created their own song, their own style. Probably my favorite album of theirs is Eat to the Beat. It's just got a little bit of everything on here. And also Clem Burke, he's just one of my favorite drummers of all time. He's just fantastic on this album. But Debbie Harry had that way about her, a very kind of like, part of what she was doing was always just a persona. She definitely had the Marilyn Monroe kind of thing going, the vibe. I don't know that was necessarily her, but it was the persona that she put out there. She's kind of an underrated vocalist. I think she's what you would call a stylistic kind of vocalist. It's not like she had the most amazing range or anything like that, but she definitely knew how to use what she had. A very expressive singer. She went on, she had solo albums. She had some, not a big popular solo career, but she had some pretty good solo albums. She did some work with the Jazz Passengers where she was singing like jazz standards for a few years like that before Blondie got back together in 1999, I believe. I was lucky enough to see them on that tour. I was so excited because, Blondie, I never had a chance to see them back in their heyday. So when they got back together, that was one of those like dream concerts for me. I love them. I'm just showing this. This is something that Aaron got me late last year. This is one of those bootleg albums that he finds. This is a live recording from the radio. This is great. This is from 1979. It's got a nice, good, eclectic group of songs in here, including You Look Good in Blue, which if you're not familiar with that song, you should listen to it sometime. It's a pretty cool song. But Blondie, I'm a huge fan of Blondie. I really love them. So that's my number 2 pick.
What's funny is I don't really know much about Blondie past the hits.
Yeah. In my mind, I don't know everything you guys like and stuff, but they seem like a band that both of you guys would like beyond the hits.
She's got that attitude, she's got that attitude like Mick Jagger had. Mick Jagger's not the most, gifted vocalist there ever was, but his attitude totally put it across. And that's the same way for Debbie Harry. She kind of had that snarl in her voice and that attitude. And I think that really defined Blondie's sound. She's a great vocalist because of that.
Yeah, I agree. And, now she's like 75, 6 years old. And, they're still doing shows around and stuff. I mean, people still want to see them. She still has an attitude, you know, she's an old woman now, but she's still out there doing it. And, you know, I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed.
Very cool.
Well, the next band that I'm going to show actually is another band that had both male and female vocalists. Talking about the Eagles, the Long Run, and Timothy B. Schmidt, who for all intents and purposes was a woman, looked like a woman, sounded like a woman. I can't tell you why. If you need any more proof, Timothy B. Schmidt had been with Poco, sounded like a woman then. But yeah, no, all right, whatever. I throw that in there.
You might as well put the Bee Gees in there too.
Yeah, well,
hey now.
But
yeah, the Bee Gees.
You know, I don't know if anybody's ever seen Timothy B. Schmidt's junk, but I don't know. I'm just saying, no man should ever sound like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, all right, I'm getting out of order here. Anyway, okay, I'm going to talk about this band next. So anyway, this is a band. I bought this album, Total Blind Buy, was out in the store. I had it originally on cassette, saw it, thought that cover looks really cool. I'm going to buy this. Never heard it before, bought it. I was totally blown away. Talking about the Sugar Cubes and their debut album, Life's Too Good. Of course, Bjork, who gained fame as a solo artist, also was the lead singer of this band. They were from Iceland, and they're very much like a cross between Talking Heads and the B-52s. B-52s because in addition to Bjork, you had Elnar Orn Benediktsson, who very much was like a Fred Schneider. You got Bjork singing the regular vocals, and then you got Elnar, who's kind of adding like these goofy talking kind of vocals. But this album, it didn't sound like anything else in my collection. The song Birthday, if you want to look it up on Spotify, listen to Birthday. And I know you've heard a lot of Bjork, but she's just on this album, she's so emotive with her vocals. You got Bjork, who, you know, can sound almost like, you know, like kind of childish sort of vocals, very innocent. And then she can also growl, just such a range to her vocals. And they almost, on some of their slower songs, they sound a little bit like the Cocteau Twins or Joy Division, but just a range. I mean, there's like some jangly pop on here. Motor Crash is my favorite track on this album. Another song, if you want to check them out on Spotify, check out Motor Crash. Just a great, great track. That will give you everything you need to know about the Sugar Cubes is in that track, Motor Crash. Blue Eyed Pop is on here. But the name Sugar Cubes comes from, it was an LSD reference. That's how they got their name. But this album came out in 1988. They had a follow-up album, Here Today, Tomorrow, Next Week, which came out in 1989, which was a little less successful because there's more Elnar on that record than there is on this one. And then their final album was 1992, Stick Around for Joy, which had the song Hit, which was got some airplay on alternative rock radio back in the day. But I'm somewhat of a fan of Bjork's solo work, but she is just fantastic on this record. If you've never checked it out, definitely, if you like the Smiths, if you like REM, if you like Echo and the Bunnymen, if you like Joy Division, if you like the Cocteau Twins, check this out. It will blow your mind. It is just so cool. It was so unique, even by the 1980s standards. I mean, what they did on this record is just phenomenal. I can't talk it up enough. And I don't see anybody show this album at all. And I don't know why, because I think it's a masterpiece. I really do. And I'm not just trying to be cute. I really think this is an excellent, excellent album. Bjork is fantastic on here. Stylistically, it's all over the map. And this was the 1980s. So that this was so inventive, and, you know, nothing else sounded like this at all. I think it's saying a lot. But Yeah, I love it.
Well, now I've got two things I want to look for. I want to look for that Renaissance, and I want to get that Sugar Cubes, because I remember listening to some Bjork back in the 90s, but
yeah, her solo stuff tends to be a little more, it's kind of experimental. The early stuff is kind of club type music. But I love her first two solo records, and then she kind of starts to lose me. I'm not a big fan of anything beyond that, but the Sugar Cubes is, because it's a great band behind her. It's not just Bjork. I mean,
yeah,
that band, the rest of the Sugar Cubes is just fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm with you, Gary. I'm gonna have to. I like Bjork, but I've never really listened to the Sugar Cubes before, so
yeah,
gonna have to check them out. Well,
all right, we're down to our last pick.
Yeah, my original number one, Gary stole my thunder because I was going to pick the Bengals. I mean, he took my whole spiel. I mean, I was going to mention the Less Than Zero soundtrack. He fucking said that, and you know, I was going to mention, you know, Hazy Shade of Winter, and but yeah, I mean, I grew up on this record right here. This is such a great record, but. So that was my original number one. So I figured I would change it. And this is to make me look cooler, this pick. Because if I'm already cool with my Black Sabbath t-shirt, but this will give me major street cred. Sonic Youth.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Kim Gordon on vocals. Now, she doesn't do all the vocals, but yep. This is their masterpiece, Daydream Nation. You know, what can you say about Sonic Youth? They are noise rock, they're alternative, they're punk, they're avant-garde, they're a little bit of everything. And you know, this record is very accessible. Some of their early stuff is a little out there, but Daydream Nation is really looked at as their masterpiece. I love Sonic Youth. I've got a lot of their CDs. This is the only album I have on vinyl. I need to get more of their stuff on vinyl. But just a killer band. I think you would like this album, Gary.
Oh, yeah, I probably would. I don't have any. I can't even remember which one I had. I had a Sonic Youth album, and then I used to work with somebody that, while I was at work, I'd borrow their stuff and listen to it. I like Sonic Youth.
Yeah. Well, they had an album called Goo, I believe, in the 90s, which had a big hit on it. I can't remember. The hit is escaping me right now, but
I saw them at Lollapalooza.
Yeah.
And you know, they had I remember that I know Rush did it too, but I'm thinking like they had a washing machine on stage with them. And you know, there were times, man, it was just this like just a bunch of noise going on, man, just like a wall of sound, but then it would come back into a song. You know, it was crazy. It was pretty cool to see, actually.
And Kim Gordon has this cool voice. It's sort of like this deadpan voice where she sounds almost like this what are those dolls called with the
marionette?
Thank you. She sounds like she could just be one of these marionettes. She just it's a cool sound. And just a really cool band.
Well, it pointed the whole way to the grunge movement. I mean, everything on there, you know, foreshadowed what would come in, you know, 1991.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And they also started on the SST label as well. This is a repress, but I don't know what label this is. But yeah, so just a great band.
Awesome.
Cool pick.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, while we're doing this, I'm like, oh yeah, you guys are reminding me of these other bands.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, because while, like when Jeff was talking about his last pick there, made me think of the Breeders and Belly.
Cranberries.
Belly was a band I really liked. But anyway, my number one pick Jeff already talked about him, but I'm not changing it just because I like him too much. That's the Pretenders. Chrissie Hynde, out of Akron, Ohio, had to go to England to form a band. She was hanging out with different members of the Clash and the Sex Pistols before they were even a band. They all formed bands before she got around to it, but eventually she met the members that Jeff talked about. And this is her second album here, which probably, this album, I actually like this better than the first one. I think this is a fantastic, and I love the first album. Like Jeff said, this is one of the best debut albums that has ever been. It's crazy that you had the Cars have their debut album out, and then I think like the next year or whatever, this one comes out. Just incredible debut albums. And the thing about the Pretenders, you mentioned you didn't know if there's any original members. Well, Martin Chambers is still the drummer. They put this out in 2020. This is a very, very good album. If you guys like the Pretenders, if you've never heard this album, I would recommend it. This is kind of a return to form on this thing. The Pretenders, they put out a lot of albums over the years, and a lot of them have been very hit and miss. There's always like a few good songs on it, but this is a pretty solid record. So Chrissie Hynde, just one of the most amazing voices in rock, just so unique. And she is just one of the coolest, people in rock. Saw him again a couple years ago, and still sounding great. I love the Pretenders, just a fantastic band.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. Is it fair to compare her to like Rick Ocasek of the Cars in terms of like, vocalist style? I don't know.
Fair in the having a unique voice. I think Chrissie Hynde's the better singer out of the two, but great songwriter. She's a whole deal, whole package.
All right. Well, mine, kind of surprised nobody picked this band, but another duo, the Eurythmics, got Dave Stewart, Annie Lennox. They were a band of the 80s. They would have been out of place in the 90s, would have been, they could have existed in no other time other than the 1980s, but so much of their music kind of as a soundtrack of the 1980s. Here Comes the Rain Again, obviously Sweet Dreams are made of this. There Must Be an Angel. So many fantastic tracks. Think about all the hits Eurythmics had in the 80s. They did a duet with Aretha Franklin. Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. Missionary Man, which was off this album. But Eurythmics was just a hit machine, and it was not dispensable 80s cheesy pop, like some of the other bands that were out during that same time. There was substance there. They were kind of part of that like post-punk new wave movement in the early 80s, but they endured, their albums are some of the, most quality albums of the 1980s. I love Annie Lennox's voice. Nobody sounds like Annie Lennox. And I think you could say that for a lot of the bands that we've shown here, just such a unique voice and such a gorgeous, the music that they made together. You have Dave Stewart, who was just a savant on the keyboards and as an arranger and as a producer, and her as a songwriter. They were just a dream team for the 1980s, and I love their music. There's not a single album that you could consider weak, but the Eurythmics are just great, and I wish I would show more. I've got other albums by them. I just pulled this one out, but take your pick. Any of their records, Touch is a fantastic album, but yeah, I think the world of the Eurythmics, and call them synth pop, whatever you want to, however you want to characterize them, but I think they had a huge influence in the 1980s. And, you know, Annie Lennox has had kind of a spotty solo career, but
she's had some really great music though too in her solo career. I've got some of her solo albums, and yeah, they're usually spotty, like you said, but it's also, she's got some really strong songs on there, and she is just one of my favorite vocalists. You know, if you're picking somebody out of people I like, that's just, well, who do you think is, you know, just a really great vocalist? Man, she would be there. And her song Why, her solo song Why, that's one of my favorite songs of all time. That's just such a fantastic vocal and lyric. It's just amazing. Missionary Man from the Eurythmics. God, that's great. That's a great one.
well, two movies that just came out within the last couple of months feature actually Eurythmics songs in their soundtrack. There's House of Gucci, which, yeah, was basically a docudrama about the Gucci family, but they have Here Comes the Rain Again. And then there was also the movie Spencer about Princess Diana, which has a Eurythmics track in it. I can't remember which one, but, you know, so their music is still, I think, relevant today. And, you know, I don't know, like, I can't imagine. I mean, when I think of the 80s, Eurythmics is one of the first bands that I think of, because I just love, you know, Annie Lennox, and they could have been a one-hit wonder. Sweet Dreams Are Made of This could have been easily a one-hit wonder. And then they, you know, but even if they had not put out anything else, I mean, that album still is one of the most iconic. You know, it's not their debut, it was actually their second album, but still, you know, the videos and, you know, that red hair and just kind of, you know, they definitely had like artsy videos that, you know, you remember from the 1980s. But yeah, just a great string of albums in the 80s.
Yeah, I definitely think when, you know, the video for Sweet Dreams came out, and then you heard it on the radio all the time, because that was a massive hit. I think it was out like, it seemed like that summer was that song and Every Breath You Take, you know, just always on the radio. I don't think anybody really, I didn't. When that song was out, I don't think you knew all the substance that was actually there, you know, because you just saw that song, you're like, oh yeah, this is this, you know, cool little song, you know, kind of thing. But the video looked weird, and you're thinking, well, this is just another band like Haircut 100 or whatever, all these bands that were floating around. And I don't think you realized how amazing they really were and how fantastic of a vocalist Annie Lennox was. I mean, looking back now, she's great on that song too, but that only showed a little bit of what she was capable of doing.
Right.
That's a great choice.
Yeah, I almost picked I wanted to pick Till Tuesday. I love Till Tuesday also, but you know, if we had maybe gone into a top 10, Till Tuesday, I think would have made it. But you know, anyway, that's our pick.
I've never listened to, I don't think I've listened to a Eurythmics album all the way through before, so I'm gonna have to listen to them.
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, they don't sound dated. I mean, other than the fact that, you know, there's a bit more synthesizer than, you know, maybe some contemporary stuff. But I still find their records enjoyable. Fleetwood Mac.
Nobody picked Fleetwood Mac.
I thought Jeff would, actually.
That was going to be my number.
I think that was a case of, I was pretty sure somebody else was going to pick them, but
yeah.
Or Jefferson's Airplane.
Jefferson Airplane. Damn it. Forgot about them too.
I thought the Runaways, I almost picked them, but I didn't.
Yeah. Yeah, could have been any of those, but I don't know. I stand by my picks.
Oh yeah, I'm happy with my picks.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We didn't get too carried away here. I think we kept it to just a little over an hour, but next week we'll be back and we'll have another engaging topic. But if you have other bands that come to mind, put them in the comment section. Thank you, gentlemen. As always, great time. And we'll see you next week.